Good evening, I'm Andy Crane and bringing you the very latest about Greater Manchester from our home at Urbis. This is Channel M News.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This is a community that's come together in the hope of wiping out the violence that tears it apart as they mourn the death of an innocent 15-year-old who had everything to live for.
Praise God, praise God.
It's a chance to remember the teenager who was gunned down here at this very spot in Moss Side. Members of the local community have gathered here at the candlelit vigil in their hundreds, and clearly the grief is as raw today as it was 3 weeks ago. Jessie was shot in Moss Side Community Park on the 9th of September. Police believe it was a gang-related attack, but say there's no evidence to suggest the youngster himself was a member of any gang. It seems Jessie was in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is a neighbourhood reeling from the violence that seems to exist here. As well as remembering Jessie, this vigil is a chance to pray for peace here in Moss Side.
Now, Callie Gilligan, the teenager murdered by her ex-boyfriend, would have turned 16 last week. To celebrate this weekend, her family and friends held a party in her memory.
Happy birthday, dear Callie. Happy birthday to you.
Well, today, Callie would have been celebrating her 16th birthday party. And family and friends have decided that the party should go ahead even without her.
It was her birthday and she would have loved us to be happy. And that's why, but we're trying to be happy. But deep down, she's there all the time on her mind, thinking she shouldn't be gone. She was lovely.
Callie was gunned down by ex-boyfriend Josh Thompson on the doorstep of a home here in Lower Broughton in Salford. The 18-year-old then turned the gun on himself. Both teenagers died. It was later revealed that Kelly had broken off their relationship, a decision Josh just wasn't willing to accept.
Terrifying. It's like you're a prisoner in your own home. I just want it to stop.
Sarah Servio and her husband Sheldon, who's originally from Belize, moved to Royton in Oldham 2 years ago. But they were forced to leave their home after a campaign of harassment from their neighbours. And why? Because of the colour of Sheldon's skin.
Because my husband is from Belize, came to this country because I wanted to live here. I wanted to live here with my children.
We strongly believe, based on the evidence and the amount of vandalism and the questions that were asked to my wife, why did she marry the coloured/black person? And that made it even more evident that we believe that it has to do with racism.
11:17 a.m. and 8-year-old Lydia Ballon lights a candle to mark the exact moment 10 years ago that the bomb exploded. Saturday, June the 15th, 1996, more than £3,000 of explosives tore through the city centre. Incredibly, no one was killed, but more than 200 people suffered injuries from the blast.
He's going to be walking around in 22 months. And I'll never see Carl ever again, or hear his voice ever again.
This is the reality behind the headlines. Sharon Crawshaw, a mother from Manchester, struggling to cope after her 16-year-old son Carl was killed because 21-year-old Aidan Green got behind the wheel of a car after having a few too many. Yesterday he was sentenced to 3 years 9 months in prison, but will only serve 22 months.
Just getting 22 months. He was only 16. It's giving them go ahead, drink drive. I'm devastated.
In August last year, Carl was crossing this road. He was knocked down by a car and killed. Now, the driver of the car, Aidan Green, left the scene of the accident and effectively left Carl for dead.
Honouring a friend, a father and a hero. Today, a moving tribute was paid to DC Stephen Oak. DC Oak was murdered during an anti-terror raid on a flat in Crumpsall in January 2003. Today, a plaque in memory to the father of three was unveiled by his widow, Leslie, close to where he died. Stephen Oak died in heroic circumstances. He was killed by a suspected terrorist who was trying to escape capture. DC Oak's bravery has been acknowledged by all.
He's been involved in the war on terrorism just as much as our fine men and women out in Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere else in the world, and he gave his life in that war. We honour our dead. We don't leave them behind, and we honour them.
He was murdered by Kamal Borgas, who was being apprehended at this flat. Borgas was wanted in connection with a terrorist plot. He tried to escape by attacking the officers who were apprehending him with a large kitchen knife. Stephen Oak grabbed Borgas and held on to him until he could be overpowered. In the process, he was stabbed 8 times, but he saved the lives of the officers he was working with. Borgas is now serving life in prison for the murder of DC Oak and his part in a ricin plot.
30-year-old Anjan Kavanagh, whose body was found here yesterday, had clearly reached the point of desperation. For a reason known perhaps only to herself, she barricaded both her and her 5-year-old son Dylan into a bedroom and lit a barbecue, suffocating them both. Anjan was pronounced dead at the scene. Dylan was taken to Booth Hall Children's Hospital, where he too was pronounced dead.
Caution! Bollards in motion!
These CCTV images show drivers getting caught out by Manchester's infamous bollards. The footage was released by Manchester City Council to the Manchester Evening News, and they've been showing it on their website Manchester Online all day, and people have been leaving their comments about the story. And I have to say there's not much support for the drivers who had their cars impaled. But one of the drivers caught out says she made a genuine mistake and believes it was not her fault.
I had no idea that was going to happen. If I had any idea, there's no way I would have proceeded. It came up with such force. I just didn't expect that to happen just through parking in a space which I thought I was allowed to do.
Natalie was trying to reach these disabled parking spaces. The problem is, though, you can't get to them without going through the bollards, and we all know what happens when you try and do that.